So I've been playing some more Brimstone lately just to expand my agent pool and to be more flexible, right? I discovered a couple of cool things about him, some sweet interactions and whatnot, you know, the usual. He's got the nice big daddy military vibes too, but I also discovered that he's absolutely, positively overtuned, busted, unbalanced. Riot Games, please Brimstone is an excellent defensive agent that has a kit full of different tools that allow him to slow and zone out enemies. However, he's also not afraid to get into the action himself and can be played extremely aggressively. Let me show you why Brimstone is so popular in the competitive scene right now, extremely fun to play, and is someone who should be a part of every team. If you're new to my agent guides, my objective for you by the end of this video is for you to be able to understand the basic ins and outs of the character while giving you some valuable details and tricks so you can gain a competitive edge on your enemies. This means that I'll be going over each of Brimstone's abilities, different interactions they can have, and good use case scenarios and situations. If you want more videos and guides like this, be a homie and drop a like, sub, and comment your thoughts on Brimstone and what you'd like to see next. When I first exposed myself to Brimstone, I was honestly surprised. This agent is incredibly impactful and flexible and has a kit that feels good without being too hard to pick up and master. I wouldn't consider him to have an insane skill requirement in order to be good at him too. Brimstone's kit can be used in almost all scenarios, but I find that he shines best when he plays defensively. Poised as your classic old military dude, much of his kit draws inspiration from tools available to soldiers, which makes him for a thematically fun but also overpowered ability set. Almost all of his abilities make for excellent tools for zoning and controlling areas, and as of the time of this recording, Brimstone also has the best smokes in the game. I find him incredibly easy to navigate a whole team together and make set plays and give plenty of information, and he's an incredible asset for any team. Brimstone's first ability is Incendiary, which allows him to equip an Incendiary. It's by far the most basic ability in his kit and is really just a Molotov. You use this ability by pressing the abilities button, which makes Brimstone pull out his little grenade launcher, and from this point, you can left click and it will launch the Molotov at a selected area. There really isn't much more to it, honestly. It can bounce off of walls a few times and such, but doesn't really do much other than that. You can use Incendiary to zone out enemies from different areas and is great when used as an angle isolation tool. It helps force people out from a certain angle. It's slightly weaker than other Molotovs like Phoenix because Phoenix can walk through his for free, unlike Brimstone, who takes 5 damage per tick from walking through his molly. However, I don't think there's anything innately wrong with this ability and it's still good, especially considering how good some other parts of his kit are. Incendiary costs 200 credits to purchase and Brimstone can carry 1 charge of it per round. Brimstone's Stim Beacon is a very interesting ability as it can actually increase rate of fire. Upon pressing the ability, Brimstone preps the Stim Beacon and can throw it down using left click. It doesn't go out very far with your throw and it can very lightly bounce off of walls as well. Once placed, Stim Beacon lasts 12 seconds and provides a buff to all agents who stand in it. Agents who receive the buff will stay buffed up while in the Stim Beacon and for 4 seconds while out of it. So you can juggle the buff by switching up your positioning on and off the beacon's area. If you have the buff on you, it will tell you that you're receiving its combat stim and will have arrows on the side of your screen to show you as well. Agents buffed by Stim Beacon receive 10% increased fire rate, 10% increased reload speed, 10% faster weapon swap speed, and 10% recoil spread recovery speed. You can use Stim Beacon in any area where you feel like you can set up shop and leave it to buff all of your allies, like in places where you have gotten the bomb and holding the site and are trying to hold against an enemy push. Stim Beacon's indicator of effect will also be shown through walls so the enemy can see where you've set it up. However, you can also use this to your advantage to try and bait out locations of where they think you are. For example, the enemy may see the Stim Beacon's indicator and may think you are on it, but in fact you threw it as a flank and actually can kill someone using an off angle. Stim Beacon honestly is much better on paper than it is in actuality, as it doesn't do too much considering how low time to kill is in Valorant. However, it is a cool addition and interesting mechanic and can be very fun to use with rapid fire weapons. It can also make slow firing weapons like the Operator much more effective as it decreases its windows of downtime. Stim Beacon costs 100 credits per charge, and Brimstone can carry 2 charges of it per round. Sky Smoke is the bread and butter to what makes Brimstone such an excellent defensive option. With this, Brimstone brings to the table a set of smoke grenades that are not only easy to use but are also by far the strongest in the game, both for their mix of intense vision control and their long duration. Upon pressing the ability key, Brimstone equips a map indicator of the general area around him and can select areas on the map to place smoke grenades on, and will be in range as long as that part of the map will be visible on his tactical map. He can put anywhere from 1 to 3 smokes depending on how many he wants to drop at once, and can indicate how many he wants to drop with left click. Hitting right click then drops all the smokes he indicated all at once. The smokes themselves are very useful, having intense vision blocking capabilities as well as the longest duration smoke in the game, lasting 15 seconds per smoke. You can choose to burst all 3 smokes at once or recast the ability, hitting each smoke one at a time in order to get extended durations on it. One caveat to this ability is that Brim cannot move his crosshair while he's on the map because his entire mouse is stuck in Sky Smoke's interface, so he can really only strafe. This leaves him open to free kills if he runs into someone, so you need to make sure you're using it from a safe area. In order to efficiently get out the animation and cancel Sky Smoke, you can simply pull out one of your guns or your knife and it will exit the map. You will also lose whatever smokes you intended to click, so you will have to re-click them the next time you pull out the ability. Sky Smoke makes Brim extremely oppressive to push into and makes your life incredibly difficult if he wants to hold down an area. Since the smokes can be cast so easily and so effectively, you can be extremely flexible with them as well. You can use one at a time on top of a specific choke point in order to keep that point held down for almost the entire round. You can stop pushes in their tracks by dropping one and giving you and your team cover and time to reposition, and you can also use it when you have taken a site as an attacker and you want to hold it down. Sky Smokes can also be great for your aggressive options as well. You can combo 3 of them together to run set executes onto sites and block off almost every angle, use one to block off part of a fork and then take the other part, and you can also use them to block out vision so you can secure control over the ultimate orbs. Unlike all other smokes in the game as well, Sky Smoke gives absolutely no indicator of which direction Brimstone is and gives no information to the enemy other than that you are close enough to be using Sky Smoke. A good way to position yourself with this in mind is to be in a choke point so that you can smoke 2 sites or areas at once from your position, and the enemy will have a hard time knowing where you stand. A good example of this would be holding vents/rope room on split on defense, where you can smoke off both A main and mid easily. If you have another defensive agent like Sage, which you most likely will, she, combined with Brimstone, bring an incredibly high level of defensive capability to the table and can stop any push in their tracks and prevent any push from happening in the first place. Sky Smoke is both cheap and effective and is by far Brimstone's best ability, so use it aggressively. Brimstone carries up to 3 charges of Sky Smoke per round and gets 1 for free every round. Brim can purchase additional charges of Sky Smoke for 100 credits per charge. Orbital Strike is a really fun ability which does an insane amount of damage and can really punish players who are not respecting it. Pressing the ability button allows Brimstone to bring up a map in a very similar fashion to Sky Smoke. However, instead of shooting a smoke grenade, Brim shoots a giant airstrike laser beam thing from the sky and does high damage over time to all agents who are stuck within its area of effect. Orbital Strike does approximately 20 damage per tick and ticks around 3 to 4 times per second, so it can kill you if you get stuck in it for even more than a second. Orbital Strike does more damage the closer enemies are to the center of it, starting with a minimum of 400 damage on the edges to 500 damage near the center if you stand in it for its entire duration. Note that the range of Orbital Strike is also fairly similar to Sky Smoke. The same restrictions from Sky Smoke also apply to Orbital Strike in that you can only strafe while casting it. In order to cancel it, I typically just press the button of the weapon I want to pull out. Orbital Strike is your go-to ability if your goal is to tell enemies to get out of the way. The moment you press the button, you guarantee that they will move away from the zone you choose. You can also trap enemies in certain spots, like ropes, on split, or if they're stuck directly on a site. You can manipulate the enemy's ability's guaranteed zoning ability by forcing enemies to walk in a certain way or even into you so you can kill them, or force them to back away from a site. Another way to use it is to stop an enemy from defusing the bomb that you have planted, as it can disrupt the defuse and buy you an additional 5 seconds on top of that, which can be enough to turn the tide in a given round, especially if the times are right. Something that's underrated about Orbital Strike is that it also does a decent job of blocking vision, so you can use it as a good way to get a free entry into a certain area for retakes or for flanks. You don't have to feel obligated to hold on to Orbital Strike for too long, as it can be used well in most scenarios, so go right ahead. Orbital Strike costs 6 ultimate points to use. So there you have it. That's all of Brimstone's kit, and although it might not sound that insane on paper and based on what I'm telling you, be assured that this agent is broken. Being generous with his utility and using it to manipulate your enemies will be key to succeeding on the agent, and this will make you feel extremely oppressive without even realizing it yourself. You won't know how good he is until you play him and realize that the enemy can't really move when they face you, and if they push at all, you just click a couple of buttons and you have full vision coverage of wherever you go and you've killed everyone. Brim's really got an interesting and wild kit on his hands, and I consider him a must pick for every game. I find him nearly as important as Sage for what he brings, so definitely try to play him if you haven't. Good luck, everyone.
Cause I got you like you got me. When the earth shakes, when the bombs scream, until our last breath, every heart